Welcome back to the deep dive. I have to admit, usually when I open up the research packet for these episodes, I have a pretty specific target in mind.
Right.
If we're doing cryptocurrency, I know we're talking about money and code. If we're doing the Roman Empire, okay, I know we're talking about guys in togas and aqueducts.
You have mental box to put things in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But today, I opened the file you sent over,
Yeah.
and I felt like I was looking at a manual for everything.
Uh-huh.
And I don't mean everything in a hyperbolic way.
Yeah.
I mean literally everything that is ever breathed, moved, photosynthesized, or wiggled across this planet.
It is a bit overwhelming, isn't it? We aren't just looking at a slice of the world. We are looking at the underlying operating system for reality as we know it. We are diving into the science of us.
We were talking about biology.
Yeah.
And I can hear the listeners right now. I can just hear the collective groan.
Oh, yeah.
I think for a lot of people, the word biology just triggers this flashback to 10th grade. High stools, the smell of formaldehyde, dissecting a frog that has definitely seen better days.
The trauma is real. I think a lot of science education focuses so much on the memorization.
Yes.
Labeling the parts of a flower, memorizing the Krebs cycle, that people just lose the forest for the trees.
Guilty as charged. I remember memorizing that mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. But I couldn't have told you why that mattered or how it connected to, say, a tree outside.
And that's what we are going to fix today. Because the material we have, this comprehensive review of the field, it's not a textbook. It reads more like an engineering schematic.
Okay.
Biology isn't just a list of animal names. It's the study of the most complex, resilient, and bizarre machinery in the universe.
And we have a massive stack of sources here. We're drawing from a really comprehensive review of the entire field, effectively the Wikipedia of biological knowledge, to keep us grounded. But our mission is to synthesize all of that. We want to find the universal rules.
Precisely. We want to identify the fundamental themes that bind all life together. It doesn't matter if you're a human, a mushroom, a blue whale, or a tiny little bacterium. You are bound by these rules.
And those rules are?
Cells, genes, evolution, energy, and homeostasis.
So no frogs.
No frogs. Well, maybe a metaphorical frog if we need one. But no, we are looking at the deep structure.
Okay, let's unpack this. But first, we have to define the term, biology. It sounds so academic, but the root is actually pretty poetic.
It is. It comes from the Greek bios, meaning life, and logia, study of. So it's the logic of life.
Simple enough.
Yep.
But the scale isn't simple at all. The sources mention a timeline that just completely broke my brain.
The 3.7 billion years.
Yes, 3.7 billion years of unbroken continuity. It's hard to wrap your head around, isn't it? But think about it this way. You, sitting here today, are the result of a 3.7 billion year winning streak.
That's a good way to put it.
Every single one of your ancestors, from the fish that crawled onto land to the shrew that hid from the dinosaurs to your grandmother, every single one of them managed to survive long enough to reproduce.
If that chain had broken once, we wouldn't be having this conversation. If just one of your ancestors had been eaten 5 minutes before finding a mate, you don't exist. You represent a perfect chain of survival stretching back to the origin of the planet.
That is a staggering amount of pressure, actually. Thanks for that.
You're welcome.
But let's start at the bottom. The nuts and bolts, or I guess the hardware of life. When we look at what life is made of, chemically speaking, I was expecting something really exotic.
You'd think so, right? Given how complex a human brain is, or how tall a redwood tree grows, you'd expect life to require some rare magical dust, unobtainium or something.
But the sources say it's shockingly simple.
It is. 96% of living matter is made up of just 4 elements.
Okay, let me guess. Carbon is the big one.
Carbon is the headliner, yes. Then you have oxygen, hydrogen, and nitrogen. That's it. That's 96% of you.
Just 4 ingredients. It's like a really limited pantry that somehow makes a Michelin star meal.
That's a great analogy. The variety doesn't come from having a million ingredients. It comes from how you arrange them. And the reason we can arrange them into such complex forms is largely down to carbon.
So why carbon? I feel like sci-fi always talks about silicon-based life forms as the alternative. Why are we so attached to carbon?
It comes down to its atomic architecture. Imagine a Lego brick. Most atoms, like hydrogen, are like a Lego piece with only one connector.
Okay.
You can stick it on something, but you can't build off of it. It's a dead end.
Right, that makes sense.
Oxygen has 2 connectors, nitrogen has 3. But carbon has 4.
It's a hub?
It's the ultimate connector. Because it can form 4 bonds at once, it can connect to oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen, or even other carbons. It can form long chains, like the hydrocarbons in fat. It can form rings, like glucose. It can form these incredible, complex 3D scaffolds.
So it's stable enough to hold a shape, but flexible enough to build with?
Exactly. And you mentioned silicon. Silicon also has 4 bonds, which is why sci-fi writers love it. But silicon bonds are a bit clunkier. They're often too strong to break easily or unstable in water. Carbon is the Goldilocks element. It's perfectly balanced for the complexity of life.
Speaking of water, the sources call it the matrix of life. And I feel like we take water for granted because it's just everywhere. But chemically, it's kind of a freak, isn't it?
It is an absolute chemical oddity. If water behaved like normal liquids, life probably wouldn't exist.
Okay, the research highlights the float factor. This was a total aha moment for me.
With the density issue, this is so critical. Most substances get denser when they freeze. If you melt iron into a liquid and then let it cool, the solid iron sinks to the bottom.
Right, the molecules pack tighter.
They pack tighter together. But water does the opposite.
Yeah.
When water freezes, the molecules arrange themselves into a crystal lattice ice that actually pushes the molecules further apart. So ice is about 9% less dense than liquid water.
Which means it floats.
And why does that matter? Well, imagine if ice sank. In the winter, ice would form on the surface of a lake.
And it would sink to the bottom.
It would sink to the bottom and accumulate. Then more ice would form and sink. Eventually, the entire lake or ocean would freeze solid from the bottom up.
Killing everything.
Exactly. But because ice floats, it forms a crust on top. It acts like an insulating blanket. It keeps the water underneath liquid and relatively warm, allowing life to survive through the winter. That one chemical quirk is a huge reason life could persist on early Earth.
That is wild. It's like the physics of the universe threw us a bone.
It did. And it's not just the floating. Water is also the universal solvent.
The perfect dance floor.
The perfect dance floor for chemistry. Life is basically just a series of chemical reaction stuff bumping into other stuff. That can't happen in a solid rock. You need a liquid medium where molecules can float around, mix, and interact.
Okay, so we've got the chemicals, carbon for the structure, water for the environment. Now let's talk about the building blocks. The cell.
The fundamental unit.
I remember cell theory being a big deal in the history books. But why was it such a revolution? I mean, wasn't it kind of obvious?
Well, not really. Before the 19th century, people didn't know how life worked. There was this prevailing idea of spontaneous generation.
That's the idea that if you leave meat out, maggots just appear out of thin air.
Exactly. People thought life could just arise from non-living matter. You leave grain in a damp corner, and mice just happen. It took scientists like Schleiden, Schwann, and eventually Virchow to prove that, no, life is discrete.
It's not magic.
It's structural. And cell theory has 3 basic rules. 1, the cell is the basic unit of life. 2, all living things are made of cells.
Right.
And 3, and this is the real kicker, all cells come from pre-existing cells.
So you can't make a cell from scratch. You have to copy an existing one.
Precisely. It confirmed that unbroken chain we talked about earlier.
Now, within the world of cells, there seems to be this massive divide. The notes call it the Great Divide.
Oh, yeah. This is the prokaryote versus eukaryote showdown.
I always get these mixed up. Break it down for us.
Okay, imagine a studio apartment.
All right, I'm picturing it. Bed next to the kitchen, no walls. Very messy.
That is a prokaryote. These are your bacteria and archaea. They are small, usually single-celled, and they have no internal walls. Their DNA, their instruction manual, is just floating around in the middle of the room with the food and the machinery.
Efficient, but messy.
And limited. You can't get too big or complex if everything is in one room. Now imagine a mansion.
Okay, I like this better.
This mansion has distinct rooms. A kitchen for cooking, a bedroom for sleeping, a library for the books. That is a eukaryote.
This is us.
This is us, plants, animals, fungi. Eukaryotic cells have organelles, little organs that are separated by membranes. We have a nucleus, which is the library where we lock up the DNA so it doesn't get damaged.
And we have the mitochondria.
The powerhouse.
I had to say it. But the backstory of the mitochondria is insane, right? It wasn't always part of the cell.
This is one of the coolest stories in all of biology. It's called endosymbiotic theory.
Okay.
The leading idea is that billions of years ago, a large single-celled organism swallowed a smaller bacteria.
It tried to eat it.
It tried to eat it, but for some reason, it didn't digest it. Instead, they made a deal. The little bacteria said, hey, I'm really efficient at processing oxygen to make energy. If you give me a safe place to live and some food, I'll power your whole operation.
It was a merger. A corporate takeover.
The ultimate corporate merger. That little bacteria became the mitochondria, and that's why mitochondria have their own separate DNA, totally different from the rest of your cell.
So they're basically ancient aliens living inside us.
Paying rent and energy.
And that energy, that's ATP, right?
Adenosine triphosphate. Think of ATT as the currency of the cell.
Like the dollar bill of the body.
Exactly. The cell can't just use sugar directly for everything. It's too big, too clunky. It has to convert that sugar into small, usable packets of ATP. Whether you are flexing a muscle, thinking a thought, or building a protein, you are paying for it with ATP.
So metabolism is just the economy of the cell.
It's the engine room. Catabolism is breaking down food to print money to make ATP. Anabolism is spending that money to build new cell parts.
And holding this whole factory together is the cell membrane. The notes call it a lipid bilayer.
A fat sandwich.
A fat sandwich.
Essentially, yes. It's 2 layers of lipids, which are fats, but it's a very smart fat sandwich. It's semi-permeable.
So it's the bouncer.
It's the bouncer at the club. It decides what gets in and what gets out. Oxygen. Come on in. Waste products. Get out. Random toxins. Sorry, you're not on the list. Without that border control, the cell would just dissolve into the environment.
So that's the hardware. We've got the chemicals, the water, the cell structure, and the power plant. But a computer is useless without an operating system. We need the software.
We need genetics.
And this story really starts with a monk and some peas, doesn't it?
Gregor Mendel, 1865. This is such a classic example of someone seeing what everyone else missed.
So what was the common wisdom back then?
People thought inheritance was a blend, like mixing paint. If you have a tall dad and a short mom, you get a medium kid. If you mix red flowers and white flowers, you get pink.
Which makes intuitive sense, I guess.
It does, but it's a problem for evolution. If everything just blends, eventually all variation disappears. Everyone becomes a muddy beige average. There's no novelty.
Right.
Mendel is working in his garden, crossbreeding thousands and thousands of pea plants. And he notices that when he crosses a purple-flowered plant with a white-flowered plant, he doesn't get light purple, he gets purple.
The white just vanished.
It seemed to, but then, and this is the brilliant part, when he bred those purple offspring together, the white flowers reappeared in the next generation, about 1 in 4.
So the trait wasn't gone, it was just hiding.
Exactly. He realized that traits are particulate. They are discrete units. We call them genes now. And they come in versions or alleles. Some are dominant, like the purple color, and they mask the others. Some are recessive, like the white, and they only show up if you have 2 copies.
But Mendel didn't know what a gene physically was, right? He just saw the mathematical pattern.
Correct. He knew there was a unit, but he didn't know if it was a particle, a fluid, or what. It took almost a century to find the physical molecule holding that information.
1953. Watson and Crick.
And let's not forget Rosalind Franklin, whose X-ray diffraction images were absolutely crucial to the discovery. They identified the structure of DNA,
The double helix.
the twisted ladder, and this structure is the key to how life replicates. It's so elegant.
Why is the shape so important? Why not just a single string?
Stability and copying. The double helix is composed of 2 strands that are mirror images of each other. A always pairs with TC, always pairs with G.
Adenine, thymine, cytosine, guanine, the 4 letters of the code.
Right. Because they are paired, if you unzip the ladder down the middle, each side serves as a perfect template to rebuild the other side. It's a built-in backup system.
That is ingenious. So when a cell divides, it just unzips the DNA and fills in the blanks on each side.
Exactly. And the sequence of those letters, that's the code. It's like binary code in a computer, but it's base 4. That sequence spells out the instructions for building you.
And the way that code is read follows what Francis Crick called the central dogma.
Which sounds very religious, but it's actually just a process flowchart.
It's the workflow.
It's the flow of information. It goes from DNA to RNA to protein.
Let's use an analogy here. If DNA is the blueprint.
Think of DNA as the master reference book in the library. It's ancient, it's fragile, and it's the only copy. You do not let that book leave the library.
And the library is the nucleus.
The nucleus. So if I want to build something, I can't take the book to the construction site.
No. You make a photocopy.
That's RNA. RNA is a cheap, temporary copy of the specific page you need. You take that RNA out of the nucleus to the construction site, the ribosome.
And the ribosome reads the photocopy and builds.
A protein. And this is the part people often miss. Proteins aren't just muscle or meat. In biology, proteins are the tools. They are the robots. They do all the work.
So the DNA isn't the robot. It's the instruction manual for the robot.
Exactly. Hemoglobin is a protein robot that carries oxygen. Insulin is a protein robot that signals sugar levels. Enzymes are protein robots that digest your food. The DNA just tells the cell which robots to build and when.
Now, this brings up the difference between genotype and phenotype.
Right. The genotype is the code itself, what's written in the library. The phenotype is the building that actually gets built.
So my genotype says brown eyes, and my phenotype is the actual physical brown pigment in my eye.
Correct. And usually the system works perfectly, but
But typographical errors happen.
mutations.
Now, pop culture has ruined this word for us. We hear mutation, and we think X-Men. We think laser eyes and wings.
If only. In reality, a mutation is just a change in the sequence. An A gets copied as a T, that's it.
And usually, that's bad, right? If I randomly change a letter in a cake recipe, I probably won't get a better cake. I'll probably get a doorstop.
Most of the time, it's either neutral, it doesn't change the meaning, or it's harmful. It breaks the protein. The robot doesn't work anymore. This is the cause of many genetic diseases.
But occasionally.
Occasionally, very rarely, that typo actually helps. Maybe it makes the enzyme work a little faster. Maybe it changes the pigment of a moth so it matches the tree bark better.
And that happy accident is the raw material for the next big theme, the update mechanism, evolution.
Evolution is really the organizing concept of biology. The famous biologist Theodosius Dobzhansky once said, "Nothing in biology makes sense except in the light of evolution."
So let's talk about Charles Darwin and Alfred Russel Wallace, who actually figured it out at the same time.
Right. They independently identified the mechanism, natural selection.
I think people still get tripped up on this. They hear natural selection, and they think it means the strongest survive, the biggest muscles, the sharpest claws.
Survival of the fittest is actually a terrible slogan. It brings to mind a gym or a boxing match. It should be survival of the best suited.
Or survival of the fit enough.
Exactly. The logic is actually very simple. One, there is variation. You are different from your sibling.
Yeah.
Two, that variation is heritable. You pass it to your kids. And three, resources are limited. Not everyone can survive to reproduce.
So the environment acts as a filter.
Think of it like a breeder. A human breeder looks at a litter of puppies and says, "I want the fluffy one." They select for fluffiness.
But in nature, there is no breeder. There's no one choosing.
The environment is the breeder. If an ice age comes along, the environment selects the fluffy ones because the non-fluffy ones freeze to death. It's not a choice, it's just a statistical filter.
So over time, the whole population shifts to being fluffier.
Exactly. That is evolution. It's just a change in the heritable traits of a population over generations.
But the time scale, that's where it gets hard to visualize. We aren't talking about a few years.
We're talking about deep time. Let's look at that timeline in the sources. Earth formed 4.5 billion years ago. Life started around 3.7 billion years ago with what we call LUCA.
LUCA.
The last universal common ancestor. The great-great-great. You get the idea. Grandmother of everything alive today.
And for a long time, nothing much happened.
Well, not nothing. But for billions of years, literally billions, it was just single-celled organisms. Slime. We call it the boring billion.
That is a long time to wait for the main event.
But then, about 525 million years ago, something crazy happened. The Cambrian explosion.
The party started.
It really did. In a geological heartbeat, almost all the major animal body plans appeared. We got eyes, legs, shells, backbones. The arms race began. Predators got faster, so prey got harder shells.
But it hasn't been a smooth ride from there. The graph of life has some massive drops.
Mass extinctions. There have been 5 big ones.
The Great Dying, that sounds
Ominous.
The Permian extinction, 252 million years ago, it wiped out something like 90%, maybe even 96% of all species. Life on Earth almost ended.
And of course, the one everyone knows, the asteroid.
The Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction event, 66 million years ago, a rock the size of Manhattan slams into Mexico.
Bad day to be a dinosaur.
A terrible day for a dinosaur, but, and this is crucial, it was a great day for mammals.
Because before that, mammals were just snacks.
We were tiny shrew-like things scurrying around at night trying not to get eaten. When the dinosaurs were wiped out, the world suddenly had all these empty ecological niches. The mammals exploded in diversity. We grew big. We went into the oceans to become whales. We climbed trees to become monkeys. So we are only here having this conversation because an asteroid hit the reset button.
Evolution is often driven by catastrophe. Destruction fuels creation.
So that leads us to the network. The incredible diversity we see today. How do we even begin to organize all this?
Biologists use a system called taxonomy, and at the very top we have the 3 domains.
Domain 1, bacteria.
The classics. They are everywhere. There are more bacteria in your mouth right now than there are people on Earth. They run the nutrient cycles. They are essential.
Domain 2, archaea.
These are the fascinating ones. For a long time, we thought they were just weird bacteria, but genetically, they are completely different.
They're the extremophiles, right? The tough guys.
Many of them, yes. They live in boiling acid springs, in salt crystals, in deep-sea vents where the pressure would crush a submarine.
And the source says they are actually more closely related to us than to bacteria.
That's the big surprise. On a molecular level, their machinery for reading DNA and building proteins looks more like ours. It's likely that the host cell that swallowed the mitochondria was an archaean, so our great-great-grandmother was a microbe living in a volcano.
That is metal. And domain 3.
Eukaryotes, that's the visible life. Plants, animals, fungi, protists, everything you see at the zoo or the grocery store fits in this one domain.
But there's an edge case here. Something that doesn't quite fit the boxes.
Yep.
Viruses.
Ah, viruses, the biological zombies.
So are they alive? Come on, give me a straight answer.
That is the eternal debate. The sources describe them as organisms at the edge of life.
What's the argument against them being alive?
They have no metabolism, they don't eat, they don't breathe, they don't produce waste. If you leave a virus on a table, it is as inert as a grain of salt. It'll sit there for 1,000 years doing absolutely nothing, but if it bumps into a cell, it activates. It injects its genetic code into the cell.
It's a hacker.
It is pure information. It hijacks the cell's factory and says, stop making proteins for you, start making copies of me. It turns the cell into a virus factory until it bursts.
That is terrifying. But also impressive in a weird way.
It shows that the line between chemistry and life is blurrier than we think.
Now, let's zoom out. We've looked at the individual players. Now let's look at the game board. Ecology.
Ecology is the study of interactions, how organisms interact with each other, and the abiotic, the non-living environment.
And the most important rule here seems to be about energy.
Follow the energy. Almost all life on Earth is solar-powered.
Photosynthesis.
Plants are the primary producers. They take sunlight and turn it into sugar. They are the only ones actually making food. Everyone else is just stealing it.
So herbivores steal it from plants. Carnivores steal it from herbivores.
Exactly. But there is a tax, a big one, the 10% rule.
This explains why we don't have herds of T-Rexes, right?
Right. When a zebra eats grass, it doesn't get 100% of the energy in that grass. It burns most of that energy just walking around, keeping warm, digesting. Only about 10% of the energy gets stored as new zebra meat.
Okay.
Then, when a lion eats the zebra, it only gets 10% of the energy that was stored in the zebra.
So every step up the food chain, you lose 90% of the energy.
Gone as heat. That is why nature is a pyramid. You need a massive base of plants to support a smaller layer of herbivores, which supports a tiny layer of predators. A single tiger needs miles and miles of forest to support enough prey to keep it alive.
It's an energy bottleneck.
It is thermodynamics in action.
This network is so intricate and delicate, which brings us to the heavy part of the deep dive. The crisis.
Conservation biology. And yeah, the sources are pretty stark on this. We are currently in the middle of a biodiversity crisis.
The numbers are scary. I saw estimates suggesting up to 50% of species could disappear in the next 50 years.
That is a rate of extinction comparable to the asteroid impact. But this time, we are the asteroid.
And I think sometimes people hear conservation and they think it's just about saving cute animals. You know, save the pandas.
Right, and pandas are great. I love pandas. But this isn't about sentimentality. It's about our own survival.
Talk to me about ecosystem services.
This is the economic term for stuff nature does for us for free.
Like what?
Pollination. Insects pollinate about 75% of the crops we eat. If the bees die, the grocery stores go empty. It's that simple.
Water filtration.
Wetlands filter pollutants out of water better than any factory we can build. Forests regulate the climate and the rainfall patterns that our farms depend on.
So when we lose biodiversity, we aren't just losing a pretty tapestry. We are pulling the bricks out of our own house.
Exactly. We are destabilizing the life support system of the planet. It's not about saving the Earth. The Earth will be fine. It will recover in 5 million years. It's about saving the biosphere that supports us.
So what does this all mean? We've gone from atoms to cells to DNA to global ecosystems. Where does that leave us?
It means that biology is a story of connection.
It's the hardware, the software, and the network all at once.
It connects the microscopic, the replication of a single DNA strand, to the macroscopic, the global climate, and it connects us to history.
That 3.7 billion years of continuity.
Every time you look in the mirror, you are seeing the result of 3.7 billion years of success. You are the cutting edge of an unbroken line of survivors.
It changes how you look at the world. You look at a tree or a bug or even a mushroom and you realize we're all built from the same four elements. We're all running the same basic software.
We are all variations on a theme. We're all cousins.
And here is the thought to leave you with. We mentioned viruses are on the edge of life. If a virus can shut down the entire human world, as we've seen, but isn't technically alive, and if we share a common ancestor with bacteria from 3.5 billion years ago, where exactly do we draw the line between chemistry and creature?
That's the ultimate question, isn't it? Are we just really, really complicated chemistry?
Or is chemistry capable of wondering about itself?
I think I'll let the listener chew on that one.
Thank you all for joining us on this deep dive into the blueprint of life. Next time you see a spider, maybe give it a nod. It's a distant cousin.
See you next time.